Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening to our distinguished guests, excellencies, friends, and colleagues. And welcome to the launch of WIPO's 2021 Global Innovation Index. We are thrilled to present to you the results of this year's Global Innovation Index and delighted to be joined today by heads of state and ministers from around the world. Now, before I introduce them, let me say a few words about what WIPO seeks to accomplish through the GII. At WIPO, our vision is a world where innovation and creativity from anywhere is supported by intellectual property for the good of everyone. And innovation is one of the most powerful drivers of economic growth and social development anywhere in the world. Successful innovation ecosystems help to push the frontiers of human knowledge forward and support entrepreneurs to transform this knowledge into new products, services, and technologies. It is therefore vital that policymakers around the world are armed with the data they need to strengthen innovation ecosystems. Not only does the GII provide a framework for benchmarking innovation performance around the world, but it's also a powerful tool for evaluating what works, what needs improvement, and how performance gaps can be closed. This year's GII is released in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, and this pandemic has taken a grim toll on lives and livelihoods. While it continues to severely impact our lives, it has also powerfully demonstrated the tremendous impact that innovation has on our daily lives. It has given us the tools to fight the pandemic spread and accelerated digital ways of working and living. While the path towards exiting the pandemic continues to be paved with uncertainty, we know that innovation is crucial to overcoming the common challenges that we face and to building back better. And here is where the real power of the GII lies, as a guide for all countries to construct a more innovative, creative, and prosperous future. I know that you're all keen to learn about the GII 2021 rankings, but before we present this year's results, we have the great privilege and pleasure to listen to virtual statements from the leaders of three countries that have made significant progress in improving their innovation performance and that have partnered with the GII to inform their innovation policies. So let me first invite His Excellency, Mr. Duque Marquez, President of Colombia, to say a few words about how his country's innovation system has developed and how it has confronted the COVID-19 crisis.
Special greetings to the Director General of the World Intellectual Property Organization, Darren Tang, and indeed to all of the participants at this important event. I wish to thank the World Intellectual Property Organization for choosing Colombia to be part of the release of the Global Innovation Index 2021. Since its creation in 2007, this index has become a very important tool for our country in formulating public policies on science, technology, and innovation. I'm proud of the upward trend that Colombia has shown in this index during the last few years, in which it has climbed 7 places from 75th place in 2009 to 68th in 2020. Furthermore, in the last edition of this index, Colombia ranked 5th among the 18 economies of Latin America and the Caribbean, and 20th among the 37 economies of the upper middle income group. As you know, the COVID-19 pandemic affected the commitment to innovation worldwide, and Colombia was no exception. Nonetheless, it also underlined the importance of investing more vigorously in science, technology, and innovation to reactivate our countries. That is what we have done in Colombia. In particular, we've improved the necessary infrastructure so that innovation processes have adequate support, and we have progressively approached the investment levels of the OECD countries. For example, we created the National Entrepreneurship Policy, which includes strategies to strengthen the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and the National Policy for Inclusion and Economic and Financial Education to promote the use of financial services to increase the productive capacities of citizens and companies. On the other hand, in 2021, we implemented the National Reactivation Policy with resources to stimulate growth throughout the country and a set of actions to make it sustainable and inclusive in the long term, framed within our commitment to Colombia strategy. Finally, we're designing national policies of intellectual property and science, technology and innovation, with actions to implement over the next 10 years, aligned with international standards. International experience indicates that countries with innovation ecosystems and more developed institutional capacities are best placed to respond effectively to the crisis. So that is and will continue to be our goal. I appreciate the release of the Global Innovation Index 2021 and congratulate Cornell University, the European Institute of Business Administration, and the World Intellectual Property Organization for the development of this valuable tool, which is vital to meet our current challenges. My best wishes to all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Duque Marquez. Let me now turn to His Excellency, Mr. Ulises Japina Correa y Silva, Prime Minister of Cabo Verde, to offer his perspectives on the contributions that innovation makes to the country's island economy.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. All protocol observed. I appreciate the opportunity to participate in the launch of this important tool for measuring the pace of innovation development. I also wish to commend the World Intellectual Property Organization for this milestone marking the launch of the 2021 edition. Cabo Verde has moved up 11 places in the global innovation ranking, and this is a clear indicator that we're on the right track, which makes us all the more determined to pursue our efforts. We're pleased to acknowledge Cabo Verde's 4th place in the African sub-region, but we're eager for more. The digital economy is a priority for our country's development. We've established an ecosystem that facilitates implementation of Cabo Verde's digital strategy and comprises 1, education, 2, training and professional skills development, 3, the promotion of entrepreneurship and startups, 4, the more widespread access to internet, which is now considered an essential commodity, 5, the development of cable telecommunications, including participation in the ELA link, and 6, investments in infrastructure, such as data centers and technology parks. There is a favorable environment for digital entrepreneurship, with subsidized access to training, technical assistance, tax incentives, subsidized financing conditions, and credit guarantees to the entrepreneur granted by the government. We've created conditions for our young talents to attend technological events, such as the Web Summit, and they've been participating with distinction. We're placing a strong emphasis on attracting digital nomads by bridging the gap between tourism, work, and the digital environment. Our aim is to prepare young Cabo Verdeans with skills for the future, which combined with investments in infrastructure can position Cabo Verde as a hub for service provision in our sub-region and the world. The COVID-19 pandemic crisis has unfortunately affected the economies and social life of all countries, but conversely, it's highlighted the need and provided a unique opportunity to accelerate digital transformation. We've experienced this in education, for instance. In a short period of time, we've succeeded in setting up and making available to students throughout the country a distance learning system through educational television. We accelerated the introduction of DTT, digital terrestrial television and promoted widespread access through low-cost digital decoders. Through school delegations, televisions were provided to more than 20,000 low-income families so that their children could access educational television broadcasting. These are investments that have become urgent due to the restrictions imposed by the pandemic. But they last and will endure over time as we maintain distance learning as a complement to in-person classes. With regard to entrepreneurship, many young people have developed innovative technology-supported solutions for the provision of a variety of services. Finally, I'd like to state that we are aware of the road ahead. In order to further advance progress on the innovation indicators, the government will continue to make a strong bid to pursue the digitalization of the Cabo Verdean economy with a view to transforming this small country into a nation capable of competing on a global scale, drawing on the talents of our young digital warriors.
Thank you, Prime Minister Ulysses de Japina Correa e Silva. Let me finally invite His Excellency Mr. Jurin Laksana Wisit, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Commerce of Thailand, to share his thoughts on how Thailand's approach to innovation.
Director General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to join you all today for the launch of the Global Innovation Index 2021. The Global Innovation Index is a key indicator that reflects the global knowledge, technology, and creativity outputs, including R&D, which leads to an effective evaluation of innovation performance and policy-making decisions of all countries. To this extent, intellectual property is a crucial component. Thailand places a high priority on IP system as one of the tools to advance our economy and the country's development to beyond the middle income traps by encouraging creation, commercialization, protection, and enforcement of creators, inventors, and SME rights. Another key mission of ours is to promote the country's economy from the local level, where a development can directly enhance the quality of life and well-being of the people. In this regard, initiatives such as the promotion of the protection of geographical indications can be extremely beneficial. From this aforementioned policy, the Ministry of Commerce of Thailand has developed significant IP services such as, firstly, expedite registration process for geographical indication from all provinces. Second, e-filing for IP registrations. Third, e-certificate for patent and petty patent. Fourth, fast track for trademark registration, which reduce time from 12 months to only 6 months. Fifth, shorten the time for trademark renewal from 60 days to 60 minutes. Sixth, shorten the time for copyright notification from 30 days to only 3 days. Seventh, online IP dispute resolution. And eighth, patent expiration date early warning system. Lastly, I would like to convey my appreciation to the WIPO and co-publishers for the hard work on the GII 2021, which helped promote the world's awareness on innovation. Thailand reaffirms our commitments to concretely drive the country forward with innovation, technologies, and intellectual property. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister Laksana Visit. So you've heard from 3 leaders of countries from around the world on their views on innovation and COVID-19. But now I think this is the moment that you've all been waiting for. What are the results of the 2021 GII? And for that, let me turn to my colleague, Mr. Marco Alaman, who's the Assistant Director General in charge of the IP and Innovation Ecosystem sector, which is responsible for, amongst other things, the work undertaken in putting together the GII report. Marco is here in person with us, but his avatar, his avatar will be presenting this in a pre-recorded video. Marco, please.
Good afternoon to our global audience. We are very pleased to present to you the 2021 edition of the WIPO's Global Innovation Index. Let me start by saying a few words about the GII and the context in which we publish this year's edition. Innovation has always been the key force propelling economic growth. As we learned over the past 2 years, innovation is even more central to our daily life. It had been at the forefront in addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. The appreciation of the important contribution that innovation makes to humanity has probably never been higher. However, innovation does not happen by itself. It emerges out of an ecosystem that encourages human ingenuity and takes new ideas to the marketplace. This is where the GII comes in. Over the past 14 years, the GII has been assisting policymakers in evaluating their innovation performance and making innovation policy decisions. What is in this year's GII report? As always, you will find the innovation performance ranking of the world's economy. At the same time, we also innovate this year and introduce a new element to our report, the Global Innovation Tracker. This new segment of the GII provides a perspective on global innovation performance, relying on a number of key indicators. For WIPO, the GII has become a prominent part of our dialogue with member states. Our GII work is now housed within the WIPO's newly created IP and innovation ecosystem sector. It certainly contributes to the sector efforts to promote vibrant innovation systems that drive economic growth. With this introduction, let's turn to the main result of this year's GII edition.
What is the state of global innovation? Has the pandemic slowed or accelerated investments in innovation? We introduced a new element to this year's GII, the Global Innovation Tracker, which offers a perspective on these questions. The first question the tracker explores is how the pandemic has affected investments in research and development. Just before the pandemic, R&D investments reached an all-time high, growing at an exceptionally high rate of 8.5% in 2019. By comparison, global GDP grew by only 2.4% that year. Historically, R&D investments have moved in parallel with economic output. In particular, they slowed substantially during the economic downturns of the early 2000s and the late 2000s. We don't yet have full data for 2020. If the pandemic's impact really were to mirror historical experience, R&D investments in 2020 would have been hard hit, possibly declining by as much as 3%. However, there are reasons to be optimistic that R&D investments will have turned out to be more resilient over the course of the pandemic. First, the impact of the crisis has been highly uneven across industries, with technology-intensive companies continuing to do well. Second, the limited available R&D data points for 2020 do not suggest pronounced declines. Government budget allocations for the top R&D spending economies that have already been published suggest that R&D budgets continued to grow in 2020. We could also collect some preliminary information on R&D performance from companies' financial statements, and interesting patterns emerge across sectors. In the pharmaceutical and biotechnology industry, around 62% of companies reported an increase in their R&D spending. This share rises to 65% for the ICT hardware and electrical equipment industry, and to 80% for software and ICT services. The industries with a majority of companies reporting R&D investment declines include the car, as well as the travel, leisure, and personal goods industries. Interesting sectoral differences also emerge when we look at international patent filings via WIPO. The most dynamic technology fields in 2020 were medical technology, pharmaceuticals, and biotechnology. This contrasts with previous years when digital communications, computer technology, and audiovisual technology were the fastest growing fields. Another important question is how the pandemic has affected the financing of innovation. We found that the number of venture capital deals grew by 5.8% in 2020, higher than the 10-year average growth rate of 3.6%. This growth in many ways is remarkable, especially considering that venture capital deals declined in Europe and North America in the second quarter of 2020, when overall financial market uncertainty was extremely high. Strong growth in the Asia-Pacific region more than compensated for this decline. And first quarter figures for 2021 actually suggest even more vibrant venture capital activity this year. The Global Innovation Tracker also tries to capture the pace of technological progress. Technological progress usually occurs gradually over a number of years. The development of the COVID-19 vaccines has defied this pattern. They were developed, clinically tested, and manufactured at unprecedented speed. Beyond medical innovation, we also looked at data on digital technologies and renewable energy. We show that progress continues to be strong in these technology fields, with promising potential to raise living standards, improve human health, and protect the environment. I invite you to have a closer look at the GRI's Global Innovation Tracker, which presents additional perspectives on the latest global innovation trends.
It is time to move now to the GII 2021 rankings. Without surprises, Switzerland, Sweden, and the United States are the world's most innovative economies, leading the 2021 rankings. Together with the United Kingdom, these four economies have all ranked among the top 5 in the past 3 years. 5 Asian economies feature among the top 15: the Republic of Korea, Singapore, China, Japan, and Hong Kong, China. The Republic of Korea joins the top 5 of the GII for the first time in 2021. Nonetheless, the majority of the GII top 25 most innovative economies continue to be from Europe. China remains at the top of the upper middle income group. Vietnam continues to lead the lower middle income group. India moves further ahead by 2 spots and takes second place in the lower middle income group. And Rwanda regains the first position in the low income group. China remains the only middle income economy among the top 30. Few other middle income economies have managed to catch up in innovation. Turkey, Thailand, Vietnam, the Russian Federation, India, Ukraine, and Montenegro make it to the top 50 this year. The TWIPS economies alone, that is Turkey, Vietnam, India, and the Philippines, are systematically catching up. Vietnam has moved from the top 60 to the top 50 in the past 10 years. India and Turkey from the top 70 to the top 50, and the Philippines from the top 100 to the top 60. Beyond China, that has moved up from the top 30 to the top 15 in the past 10 years, these 4 large economies together have the potential to change the global innovation landscape for good. For several years, the GII has demonstrated the positive relationship between innovation and economic development. The more developed an economy is, the more it innovates, and vice versa. However, some economies break out of this pattern. Some perform above or below expectations relative to their predicted performance and level of development. In the GII 2021, 19 economies are performing above expectations. India, Kenya, the Republic of Moldova, and Vietnam hold the record for overperforming on innovation for the 11th year in a row. Brazil, the Islamic Republic of Iran, and Peru overperformed in 2021 for the first time ever. Sub-Saharan Africa is the region with the largest number of overperforming economies. Top-performing economies in Northern America and Europe continue to lead in the rankings. The innovation performance of economies from Southeast Asia, East Asia, and Oceania has been the most dynamic in the past decade. It is the only region closing the gap with the innovation leaders. Northern Africa and Western Asia, Latin America and the Caribbean, Central and Southern Asia, and Sub-Saharan Africa have followed in that order. In Northern Africa and Western Asia, Israel continues to lead the region, followed by the United Arab Emirates and Turkey. In Latin America and the Caribbean, only Chile, Mexico, Costa Rica, and Brazil rank among the top 60. In Sub-Saharan Africa, only Mauritius and South Africa rank in the top 65. And only Kenya and the United Republic of Tanzania have remained firmly in the top 100 and improved their performance over time. Finally, the GII identifies the top 100 science and technology clusters, which are located in 26 economies. The US continues to host the highest number of clusters, followed by China, Germany, and Japan. Tokyo Yokohama is the top-performing science and technology cluster once again, followed by Shenzhen, Hong Kong, Guangzhou, Beijing, Seoul, and San Jose, San Francisco. Clusters in China recorded the largest increases in measured science and technology output. Brazil, China, India, the Islamic Republic of Iran, Turkey, and the Russian Federation are the only 6 middle-income economies hosting top science and technology clusters. The clusters of Delhi, Mumbai, and Istanbul advanced strongly this year.
To conclude, it is clear that the pandemic has left its mark on the global innovation economy. As we look forward, the exit of the current crisis, innovation will play a key role in building back better. The GI will continue to help guide policymakers and other stakeholders in this journey. I want to thank my co-presenter, Carsten and Lorena. The GI is the product of collaboration across the organization. In particular, I would like to thank the GII team working under the supervision of our chief economist for its hard work on the GII every year. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you to virtual Marco, virtual Carsten, and virtual Lorena for the presentation. We're now pleased to also share with you a number of virtual statements from several ministers responsible for innovation in different parts of the world, who have kindly offered to comment on the innovation performance of their economy and how they use the GII to help them formulate their innovation policies. And we will show, in this order, ministerial statements from China, India, the Republic of Korea, Switzerland, and the United Arab Emirates. So we start with the statements, and I'll pass the floor to the ministerial statements. Thank you.
尊敬的
Dear Director General Darren Tang, ladies and gentlemen, friends, It's my great pleasure to attend the GRI launch event once again. Since its establishment, WIPO has made great contribution to global innovation governance, the protection and the utilization of IP, the development of global IP infrastructure. Chinese government has continued to deepen cooperation with WIPO to promote the formulation of open, inclusive, balanced, and effective international rules on IP. In 2020, the Chinese Ministry of Science and Technology renewed the MOU with WIPO to carry out multidimensional and in-depth cooperation in a variety of areas, including innovation performance evaluation and technology transfer from the public R&D institutions. The Chinese government attaches great importance to the advances of science and technology and regards innovation as the primary driver for development. China has made vigorous efforts to pursue the innovation-driven development strategy, promote the integrated planning of basic research, applied basic research and technological innovation, foster a sound legal, policy, cultural, and institutional environment, and build an efficient and smooth national innovation system. Through the concerted efforts of the whole society, China has seen significant progress in scientific and technological prowess and innovation performance, and steady innovation in its key science, technological, and innovation indicators. According to the GRI 2021, China has seen a rise in its ranking of innovation performance. It is the only medium-income economy that is in the top 30. In 2020, China's total R&D expenditure exceeded 2.4 trillion RMB, accounting for 2.4% of the GDP. China ranked the world's #1 in terms of innovation patent filings and grants and Internet of PCT patent applications. Today, China is in a critical historical period marked by the transition between the two centennial goals. China is increasingly inseparable from the world in pursuing scientific and technological development, and vice versa. As a responsible major country, China has earnestly fulfilled its international obligations in the fight against COVID-19 and worked actively to build an open service platform for sharing scientific outcomes with the world. China has shared its experiences in fighting the pandemic with the international community and earnestly honors its commitment to providing vaccines and other public products to the world. As China enters a new stage of development, we are more keen to promote openness and cooperation in science and technology and to take bolder steps wherein. As the competent authority for STI, the Chinese Ministry of Science and Technology stands ready to foster a closer circle of friends in science and technology to jointly address the global problems and challenges facing humanity and drive to build a community of innovation cooperation. Finally, I wish this meeting success. Thank you.
다렌탕 와이퍼 사무총장님과 참석자 여러분, 글로벌 혁신지수 2022를 발표하는 뜻깊은 자리에 함께하게 되어 영광입니다. 또한 코로나19로 어려운 상황에서 한국이 글로벌 혁신지수 순위가 지난해 10위에서 올해 5위로 도약한 점에 대해서도 기쁘게 생각합니다. 전 세계는 코로나19 확산으로 대공황 이후 최악의 경제 위기를 경험하였으나 조금씩 어려움을 헤쳐나가고 있습니다. 그리고 이러한 과정에서 우리는 창의적인 아이디어와 혁신적인 노력이 매우 중요하다는 점을 다시 한번 확인하였습니다. 보통 10년은 소요된다는 백신 개발이 이번에 단 10개월 만에 성공할 수 있었던 것은 창의적인 연구자와 혁신 기술이 있었기 때문입니다. 한국도 이러한 점을 인식하고 창의적 아이디어를 장려하고 혁신 활동을 촉진하기 위해 많은 노력을 기울여 왔습니다. 빠르고 정확한 진단 키트, 편리하고 안전한 검사를 위한 워크스루, 정보통신과 빅데이터를 활용한 관리 시스템 등은 우수 방역 사례로 국제사회의 주목을 받은 바 있습니다. 또한 한국 정부는 백신, 치료제 등 바이오 분야와 디지털 전환이 핵심인 IT 분야에 대한 연구개발 투자를 크게 확대하였습니다. 한국의 기업들도 메모리 반도체와 2차 전지 등 중요 핵심 기술에 대한 지속적인 투자와 기술 혁신을 통해 세계 시장을 선도하고 있습니다. 이러한 노력 덕분에 한국의 경제 지표는 코로나19 이전 수준으로 빠르게 회복되고 있습니다. 또한 팬데믹 상황임에도 불구하고 지식재산권 출원이 증가하였고 한류 콘텐츠는 빌보드 차트와 아카데미상을 석권하며 글로벌 대중문화 시장에서 영향력을 확대하고 있습니다. 이러한 성과들은 와이포 글로벌 혁신 지수에서 좋은 평가를 받았고 한국은 역대 최고인 종합 5위에 오름으로써 우수 혁신 국가로 자리매김하였습니다. 한국은 이에 안주하지 않고 혁신 활동에 더욱 매진하여 포스트 코로나 시대의 세계 경제의 회복과 도약에 기여하겠습니다. 한국 정부는 올해를 탄소 중립 원년으로 선언했습니다. 친환경 정책은 물론 이를 뒷받침할 수 있는 혁신적 기술과 신산업 발전을 통해 탄소 배출을 획기적으로 감축시킬 수 있는 생태계를 조성할 예정입니다. 또한 전 세계적으로 비대면 온라인화가 본격화되고 디지털 전환이 가속화됨에 따라 데이터, 네트워크, 인공지능 기술이 접목을 촉진하고 로봇, 드론 등 미래 유망 산업에 대한 투자를 확대해 나갈 계획입니다. 탄소 중립과 디지털 전환은 국제사회의 긴밀한 협력 없이는 달성할 수 없습니다. 이 자리를 빌려 와이포 회원국의 적극적인 관심과 협조를 요청드립니다. 한국도 관련 경험과 노하우를 활발히 공유하고 개도국을 위한 ODA 사업을 추진하는 등 이러한 노력에 적극 동참하겠습니다. 다시 한번 글로벌 혁신지수 2021 행사 개최를 축하드리며 함께하신 모든 분들이 건강과 행복을 기원합니다. 감사합니다.
I'm very grateful to WIPO for publishing and presenting the Global Innovation Index 2021. I'm pleased that Switzerland was able to maintain its first place in the GYY again this year, despite the pandemic. Actually, patent applications have remained relatively stable and the number of startups has even risen. That makes me optimistic for the future. So the question to be answered is, what is Switzerland's recipe for innovation success? Frankly speaking, I doubt there is a universal recipe that fits all. Nevertheless, let me mention 3 of the ingredients that are likely to contribute to the good position of our country. First, our domestic market is small. Swiss enterprises are forced to compete in the highly competitive global market. This is an incentive for Swiss entrepreneurs to be more innovative. Second, Switzerland has barely any natural resources. Our crude oil is innovative ideas from bright minds. The precondition for bright minds is an excellent education system. Swiss universities have a long tradition as a location for business startups. And last but not least, our 26 cantons are in competition with each other and therefore have an interest in offering the best possible conditions for innovative companies. There are, however, still many aspects of Switzerland's innovation system which could be improved. We learn about these also thanks to the Global Innovation Index. We welcome the benchmark as it allows us to constantly reflect and develop. Therefore, once again, thank you very much for your excellent work.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to address you at the launching event of the Global Innovation Index 2021. I would like to take this opportunity to extend my warmest greetings to all of you. With the continuous reform process, Turkey made significant progress in the list. Turkey jumped 10 places and ranked 41st in this year's Global Innovation Index report. This is the highest ranking that we have ever achieved up to now. Turkey also ranks 4th among the 34 upper middle income economies. We consider Global Innovation Index as an important springboard for the formulation of evidence-based innovation policy. In this sense, we set up a cross-ministerial national task force. We carried out a comprehensive analysis on each of the 80 indicators to determine the missing or outdated data. We have cooperated with international institutions such as World Bank, OECD, and UNESCO. Then, we have published our national roadmap to take concrete actions with co-design approach, bringing together academics, business people, NGOs, and politicians. To follow up the progress on the action plan regularly, we established Turkey's Global Innovation Index coordination and monitoring platform. We have also joined our forces with the Portland Institute to better analyze the metrics. Last but not least, Turkish Exporters Assembly participated in the GII's corporate network as a new knowledge partner. We would like to be a part of the GII Academic Partners Network as well. Based on these consultations and key takeaways from the 2021 Global Innovation Index report, we will formulate our long-term action plan and strategy by the end of this year. Ladies and gentlemen, we aim to further improve our ranking through new strategies, reforms, and programs by taking account of the core pillars of the innovation ecosystem. Turkey rapidly mobilized its different initiatives to spur innovation as part of emergency measures and recovery packages during the pandemic. Our interventions focused on regulatory framework, infrastructure, investment climate, human capital, and international cooperation. They are actually consistent with the key enablers of the Global Innovation Index. We have joined the World Economic Forum's global network of centers for the fourth industrial revolution to harness and to disseminate the new technologies for the future of manufacturing. In order for current employees to acquire modern-day skills, we have launched the Closing the Skills Gap Accelerators program. We also actively participate in EU research and innovation programs, strengthening the impact of research and innovation in enhancing industry competitiveness while tackling global challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank WIPO, its co-publishers, and all the knowledge partners for their efforts to advance innovation. We are very pleased to be the youngest knowledge partner to this endeavor. As I conclude in my remarks, I would like to express our intention to host a national Global Innovation Index launch event. Thank you and take care.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon to you all. At the outset, I would like to thank the World Intellectual Property Organization for recognizing the UAE's performance in the field of innovation once again, and its focus on assessing global innovation landscape through the COVID-19 crisis. It is an honor to join the launch of the 14th Global Innovation Index that allows readers and policymakers to benchmark the innovation ecosystem performance of 132 global economies. The UAE has climbed one position up from 34 to 33, and we look forward to being one of the top 10 countries in this regard in the near future. The announcement of this ranking in the year 2021 coincides with the year of UAE's Vision 2021's culmination, and our national innovation strategy has been part of this vision. We attribute the UAE's progress in the global rankings to the creation of a sustainable environment conducive to innovation following the launch of our national innovation strategy. Apart from promoting a culture of innovation within the public sector, we're also encouraging the private sector, small and medium enterprises to follow suit. To enable this, the UAE has ensured the necessary infrastructure and, most recently, legislative reforms to attract and retain talent in the country. Furthermore, we believe in the role of youth and women in enhancing the innovation landscape and continue to support it as well through various initiatives. Research and development is imperative to driving innovation and has always been acknowledged as critical to fueling long-term sustainable economic growth. Currently, the UAE's R&D spending amounts to 0.9% of the GDP. The country is home to some of the leading R&D universities that support and promote interdisciplinary, collaborative research and development in the UAE's priority science and technology domains. The UAE's Khalifa University is among the top 200 R&D institutions globally, while 3 other UAE institutions rank among the top 500. Innovation parks, hubs, collaborative spaces have become an integral part of the country's higher education landscape. Moreover, rapid digital transformation, e-dirham, golden visa or long-term residencies, and most recently, the launch of the projects of the 50, of which the green visa and the freelance visa are a part of, all highlight the UAE's ambition to become a talent hub in order to lead the path in innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, the UAE was quick to respond to the outbreak of the pandemic, and the country's leadership, decisiveness, has played a big role in limiting its business impact on business continuity and normalcy. Right now, from the stage to the recovery stage, we have been able to mitigate the repercussions of COVID-19 on health, economic, and social fronts, thanks to innovative capabilities of these sectors in the UAE. Today, we're among the countries that conduct the largest number of COVID screenings per day, which of course accelerates our transition to the post-COVID phase. We believe that innovation is now more important than ever. It is our key to unlocking sustainable growth and prosperity, a better and brighter future for everyone. Before concluding, I would like to thank WIPO for the service it provides the UAE in the various areas of intellectual property, especially those related to training and technology transfer for sustainable growth. I wish the organizers continued success in promoting and tracking the growth of innovation around the world. Thank you, and I wish you all the best.
I thank once again the ministers from China, the Republic of Korea, Switzerland, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates for sharing with us their statements and sharing with us their innovation journeys and the journey ahead for them. We stand together with them on this journey. So I now move to the panel segment of today's proceedings, which is on innovation throughout and post-COVID-19. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard over the last 1 hour various aspects of the GI report and how it offers a global assessment of how COVID-19 has affected the global innovation landscape. Innovation has been resilient, but not evenly spread. So we need to look into it a bit more deeply, and that's what today's panel will be doing. And today's panel, we're very pleased to be able to not just invite people from the public sector, but different stakeholders in the innovation ecosystems. Where we are joined by people from the inventor side of the house. We're joined by someone who has experience in entrepreneurship as well. And to kick off the discussions, we're very honored that His Excellency, Mr. Don Graves, the Deputy Secretary of Commerce of the United States, has very kindly agreed to offer some of his introductory remarks. So with that, let's go to the recording of Secretary Graves' remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Director General Tang, for your remarkable leadership of the World Intellectual Property Organization. I also want to thank the members of WIPO, along with researchers who helped produce the Global Innovation Index 2021. Innovation and intellectual property protections are essential to the 21st century global economy. It's what moves us forward from generation to generation. The pandemic has made clear why it's so important that we work together to solve the world's most pressing challenges. It's critical that we capitalize on our collective innovation through forums like WIPO. It's vital that we cooperate in the sciences and R&D, and it's imperative that we support our inventors and innovators. The power of our collaboration was on full display the past 18 months with the development of COVID vaccines in record time. It was a global collaboration involving individuals, companies large and small, and government support. But as remarkable as that global achievement has been, there's still room for improvement. Ultimately, innovation itself is only as far-reaching as the diversity of people who drive it. Diversity challenges people to think differently and perform better. We can enhance our innovation significantly by including a much more diverse group of people in the sciences, technology, math, engineering, invention, and commercialization. That diversity applies to geography, gender, race, ethnicity, and more. For example, Dr. Catalin Carrico is a Hungarian biochemist who became a U.S. citizen, and her research helped create both the Moderna and Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines. She and other scientists like her are true heroes who've saved millions of lives and represent the kind of diversity that moves the world forward. The United States is an innovation powerhouse for this exact reason. Our greatest strength is the diversity of our people working in all areas of the innovation economy. So as we look to the future, let's commit to a new era of innovation, one that brings people into the innovation economy who represent the full breadth and diversity of our human potential and our world. Doing so will undoubtedly improve the lives of all our citizens and generate growth for all our economies. Thank you, and I look forward to working with all of you in the future.
I thank remarks from His Excellency Mr. Don Graves, Deputy Secretary of Commerce of the United States. So let us now turn to the live segment of this proceedings, to the live panel. And with us today are three very distinguished guests. First will be Her Excellency, Ms. Sterna Billiner, State Secretary of the Ministry of Enterprise and Innovation of Sweden. Second guest joining us today is Ms. Stacey McGrath Gifford, Master Inventor, Manager of Materials Discovery, IBM Research from the United States. And the last panelist joining us today is Mr. Philippe Devost, President of Philios and an Advisor of Corporate Startups and VC France. Philippe is from France. So with that, let me start perhaps by giving the floor to Ms. Billiner from Sweden. State Secretary, welcome to GII 2021. Are you there?
I think I'm here, yes.
Lovely.
Can you hear me?
Great, we can hear you loud and clear. Now, Sweden has been one of the top performers in the GII for over a decade, placing itself consistently in the top 3 for quite some time now. My first question is, what is your secret sauce? What is the what's the secret of Sweden's innovation success?
Yes, I wish there was a magic bullet, huh? It would be easy. Just do this, and then you place yourself in the top of the innovation index. But and of course, I mean, investment is key. Putting innovation and research on top of the government's agenda is of course extremely important. But I would like to highlight 3 maybe a little bit more different topics. One of the Swedish not so secret innovation recipes is trust, societal trust. It's the trust in institutions, the trust that citizens has in relation to international cooperation, and trust is sort of the fundamental part for entrepreneurs and innovators to be able to take risk. So therefore, I would say that Sweden is a society that is focusing a lot on building societal trust, and I would say that is key for building an innovation culture in the society. Another part is that Sweden has a strong history of investing in people. We have free education, free university. We have a strong welfare state, and therefore we try to build a secure society where you can you can take risks and you can also fail, because you know that the welfare state is there to pick you up. And there are different aspects of this investing in people. We for example, we have a very famous, in Sweden, we have a very famous music industry. I guess that you all know ABBA, and you know Sara Larsson, and you know about Avicii, and those innovators and entrepreneurs, they are built by the system where Sweden invested in people. We invested in the state music school. So therefore, you have to build a culture from when the kids are young, and then they sort of are fostered into an innovation culture. Another thing that is definitely important for the Swedish innovation culture is gender equality. We cannot afford to keep 50% of the society outside the rooms where decisions are made. So therefore, you have to focus on gender equality in research, in powerful positions in the government, and also focusing on make sure that the money and the research money and also the investments in the private sector are reaching all the citizens of the society. So those are three other aspects than sort of putting innovation culture in the center of the government's agenda. Trust and investments in people and gender equality.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's interesting you mentioned gender equality because ABBA, which is one of my favorite groups, shows gender equality as well. We've got two amazing composers, Benny and Bjorn, but it will not be complete without two amazing singers, Agneta and Annie-Frid, who've been able to blend all four together and congratulations on the release of their new album in a few months to come. Let me move on. Let me stop fanboying about ABBA and move on to my next question, which is what is Sweden doing now to keep up its strong performance for the next decade? Could you share with us some of your plans, some of Sweden's plans to keep being one of the top performers?
Yeah, I'll try. That's of course a very difficult question, and it has many layers. But one is that we have advocate for an open world, for open trade. I mean, Sweden is a small country in the northern part of Europe, and there are many countries that don't even would be able to put out, I mean, to find Sweden on a map, and therefore we really need to be able to have to be open to the world. So trade and export and import and all these issues are extremely important for us, and also to be able to travel the world and meet other people and to study in different parts of the world and to have an open society. Another aspect is that it's important for us to focus the innovation system on the societal challenges that are the most important for our society right now. And for the government's work in Sweden right now, we are extremely focused on reaching the goal that Prime Minister Stefan Löfven set up when he first came into office, and that was that we want to be the first fossil-free welfare state in the world. And that is the leading star, the guiding star for all the work that the government is doing, also in innovation. So what we are doing is that we are trying to focus the innovation system on reaching, finding solutions on these societal challenges. Also, we want to keep the barriers low between entrepreneurship and innovation. So we want to get those systems to really integrate and to work together. And also we have another focus that we've been working a lot with the last maybe 4 or 5 years. There is one aspect that frightens me a bit, and it's that what we see right now is that different parts of the society are not developing in the same speed. We have an extreme fast technological speed right now. The development in the technology is extremely fast. And what we see is that the citizens, especially in Sweden, since we are often referred to as early adopters, we see that the citizens of Sweden, they're adapting this new technology very fast. But the system that is not so fast is the public sector, the governance system. So what we have to find more agile public sector, find systems that that makes sure that the state also develops a bit faster. So what we did a few years ago was that we launched a special committee named COMET, and this committee's mission is to assist us to identify policy challenges where policy hasn't developed that fast. And this committee is contributing to reducing uncertainties surrounding existing regulation and to be able to accelerate the public sector system so that the government and the state is not, hinders technologically development. So that is one focus. And then obviously this focus that we are discussing here today and that you in WIPO is so extremely important, and your leadership on this one is also, of course, important for us to promote the importance of intellectual property rights. But those are some perspectives from Sweden.
Thank you so much. What is the effect of COVID-19 on innovation in your country? We've just seen the report, and what it seems to suggest is that innovation and creative parts of the economy tend to be resilient. I'm curious as to what the impact has been on Sweden. What challenges and opportunities, and how have you and your government and business adjusted policies and business practices, if at all?
It might be a little bit too early to be able to answer that question with a lot of clarity. We are still in a global pandemic. So we are painfully aware of that we are not out of the pandemic yet. I would say that what the pandemic has helped us with is to put focus on the importance of innovation. Not only, the fact that innovation has brought us vaccine on COVID-19, that's the most important one, and that has also put focus on the global trade issues around that. And another part that will definitely be affected for the future, and we will never go back to the non-digital lifestyle, where we are traveling the world for different conferences to be able to attend a meeting like this for 10 minutes and then travel back again. So I guess the working life will be changed forever, but in what way? I'm not sure we know that yet. And since the working life is changed, then also, the homes of the people will be changed forever, the family balances. But it's still too early to get the easy answer on how the innovation system has changed. But I would guess that innovation will be even more important in the future, and also partnerships has been emphasized. The importance of building partnerships between business, academia, and government. In Sweden, we have 5 strategic innovation partnership programs where we are working together with academia and business and also civil society to find solutions on the societal challenges. And in those strategic partnership programs, we are focusing on the climate neutral industry, on skills and lifelong learning, and also the digital transformation, and health and life science. And I would say that that model, working in a very, very strong partnership with business and academia, that is probably one of the most important things that we learned during the pandemic, and that we will definitely make us stronger in the future. But also the importance of global leadership, like WIPO is showing here today, and to be able to learn from each other and to meet and to discuss these important questions. That is definitely something that we will, even though we might not fly and meet each other all the time on major conferences all around the world, we will definitely need this this sort of areas and discussion forums in the future. So thank you so much for showing this leadership, and thank you for giving me some minutes to share the Swedish perspective. It's been really interesting.
Not at all. It's a pleasure to hear your perspective, Secretary Billenia. I agree with you that one of the toughest parts of building an innovation ecosystem is to create the linkages between the different actors in the system. And one thing I've noticed about the top performers in the Global Innovation Index and those that improve, they tend to be focusing on creating the linkages. When we develop components that are on their own or without regard towards the larger ecosystem, the results tend to be suboptimal. And whatever it is, we look forward to Sweden's early adopter attitude to see what life will be like as we begin to hopefully emerge from the pandemic. You're right, that is still seems to be quite a bit of a tunnel ahead of us in terms of the new variants. But thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to your presence with us in future meetings. Thank you for your information and work. And I wish Sweden all the best as you work towards your vision of being the first green social economy. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
So I now would like to invite our next panelists to join us, and that's Stacey McGrath Gifford. Stacey, if I could, I think Stacey, you're joining us from the US. Can you hear us, and are you online as well? Hi there, Stacey.
Yes. Yeah. Hi, can you hear me okay?
Welcome to the Global Innovation Index 2021. Let me first start by asking you, how has the pandemic disrupted the lives of an innovator like you, or innovators, people in the innovation community, or the innovation process and collaboration? And maybe how has IBM responded to the pandemic at large? So to kick things started, love to hear your views on these two questions.
Sure, yeah. So IBM has led the U.S. in number of patents for the past 28 years. So innovation is pretty core to our business model. And I'm part of IBM Research, which is one of those research and development organizations that receives investment in that activity. So it's very fundamental to our activities as well. I think, as was mentioned earlier, technology industry tended to adapt a little bit better to the transition to remote work than other sectors were able to. So I think for IBM, we were already prepared in a lot of ways to work remotely. So that transition, while unexpected and jarring, was, we were prepared for it from a technological standpoint. We were able to adapt relatively quickly, and there wasn't a huge interruption in our ability to collaborate and work together. I think what we've seen over the past year and a half is that what used to be more informal innovation sessions where people would run into each other in the hallway and maybe share an idea and then brainstorm later in the week and write a disclosure and submit that, everything is much more intentional now, right? You have to set up a meeting to brainstorm and come up with ideas to write patents, or to launch a new research program, or anything in that sense. It has to be a lot more deliberate. So I think that's made things more complicated in some ways, and it's become, we've seen, there was a publication even this week from Nature Human Behavior showing that with remote work, everything is much more siloed. You're seeing a lot less communication between different departments, even within the same organization. So I think we have to be much more mindful about setting aside time and sort of building those connections and collaborations, both between different organizations, but even within existing organizations. I think one advantage that we've seen come out of the pandemic has been a focus on global connection. So certainly as a US-based company, we would oftentimes have, you'd have meetings and you'd have collaborators or colleagues calling in from other countries, other time zones and things like that. And they would oftentimes be the people who were sort of outside the room, right? And now everybody's in that situation. So in some ways, it's a little bit like the great equalizer, where everybody's voice is heard a little bit better because we're all sort of communicating on the same platform. And it's giving everybody the same opportunity to contribute and to lead meetings. And you don't necessarily have to physically be in the room to have those opportunities. So I think there's a little bit of a trade-off there, but everything has to be a little bit more deliberate now.
Thanks, Stacey. I think we're seeing that in Geneva as well. Whether international organizations or the missions working here, it's true that we are seeing more inclusivity in terms of people joining the meetings. People that usually would have to fly to come here to join us, right? They can just simply call in. It's not good for time zones and for sleeping cycles, but certainly I think it means that people can be in the room, and I think that's important for the business that we're all in, which is innovation. And I also like your other point, which is that innovation requires that contact, that pizzazz, and that bouncing of things of ideas of each other, right? When we bump to each other in the corridor. So I think that's a part that we do miss a lot, even here at WIPO. So I think that seems that there's quite common experiences around the world in this. I'm curious. It's not common to find women inventors, and here at WIPO, we're very pleased that we've gotten the first woman Deputy DG in charge of patents and technology. That's Lisa Jorgensen from the US. How has the pandemic posed challenges for women inventors? Just would love to hear your views on this and your experiences.
Yeah, I'm happy to give some insight there. So I have two daughters who are 4 and 7. So I can tell you, just from a balancing act of that, you have to prioritize what you're doing. And I think oftentimes we find that patenting sometimes gets deprioritized as one of those kind of extra activities. So I think we have to focus on making sure that innovation activities, whether it's patenting or others, remain sort of priorities, despite all of the challenges of balancing that at home. We know that before the pandemic, women carried a disproportionate amount of at-home responsibilities, and the pandemic has really only widened that gap. I think the statistic I saw was 3.5 million women in the US alone have either moved to paid or unpaid leave or have left the workforce entirely. So I think as we come out of the pandemic, we're going to have to focus really carefully on workforce reentry programs and making sure that the women who have left the workforce, either temporarily or not, have a path to get back in there and continue to innovate. Right? We, as Dina mentioned, we don't want to lose 50% of our best and brightest minds, due to the challenges the pandemic placed on women in particular. And so I think, I think one of the advantages that we've seen, as you mentioned, is sort of this increased flexibility. You can call in, you don't have to fly all the time. And that's certainly a huge advantage when you're dealing with sort of this continuous blending of work and home, all together. So I think that's been good because it gives people like me opportunities to do things like this that would otherwise be really challenging to do, balancing a job and a family and everything else. But we just need to make sure that there are still there's a broad enough population of women and other groups that have been sort of disproportionately disadvantaged by the pandemic, that we're sort of left standing when we come out of this, and that there's a path to get people back in and sort of, at the levels or beyond the levels they were participating prior to the pandemic.
Thanks so much, Stacey. We are seeing this in WIPO as well. We've got these challenges, and we are trying hard to also work with member states to see how we can support women in IP, not just IP professionals, but upstream at the inventor level and downstream at the enterprise level, working with female entrepreneurs, working with female inventors, right? So I hope to be able to make some announcements in due course to see how we can more concretely support member states in this regard. My last question for you is, what opportunities do you and your team, and perhaps IBM, what opportunities are you seeing with COVID? It's been devastating for all of us, of course. But in the midst of all this, right, the refrain I'm getting from many people is that this is also an opportunity to to look at innovation. And so what I'd love to hear of you as to what opportunities you think COVID has presented for you, for your team, and for IBM.
Yeah, I'm happy to give the perspective. So I think one really concrete example that we've seen from IBM, we created the COVID-19 High Performance Computing Consortium, and this was a global organization that IBM launched, but it was in partnership with a large number of tech companies, with academic institutes, with government organizations, and it provided open high-performance computing resources, open data sets, in a way that really is unprecedented. So I think prior to COVID and prior to sort of this urgent demand to share data and share computing resources, there was less open partnership like that. And so I think we've kind of set a precedent for how companies that and organizations that may not necessarily historically work well together can come together to address a global challenge. And so that gives me a lot of hope for other types of global challenges that we're facing in the future, such as climate change, which is an area that I work in personally. And so I think that's one example, right? Is just sort of that we're all capable of this type of open partnership that allows us to innovate much more quickly and on a level that we haven't seen prior. We know we can do it, so now we just have to keep doing it, right? I think the other aspect is, I'd say, related to climate change, right? We're seeing an opportunity to kind of build back greener and more sustainably, as Stina mentioned also for Norway. And certainly we have research programs, which I'm a part of at IBM Research, on building new technologies to address climate change. And we sort of see this opportunity economically, where, as we're looking to reinvest in infrastructure and other parts of our economy, can we do it in a way that's more sustainable and actually allows us to tackle both an economic challenge, but a climate challenge as well? So I think for me, those are the two that I probably see and feel the most every day, but certainly there are a lot of opportunities. Yeah.
Stacey, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on these issues. I wish you and your team all the best as you navigate the new ways of working and of raising of balancing work and family. I think these are all challenges that we face anywhere in the world, and I look forward to supporting you and your team as you innovate towards helping us to overcome the climate change challenge. Thank you so much, Stacey. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. I now move to the last panelist on our list, Mr. Philippe Devos. Philippe, of course, is president of Filios, which is advisor for companies, startups, and venture capital funds. He's co-founder of Wanadoo and La French Tech and Godfather. He's extensive experience in all these different areas of entrepreneurship and technology. So Mr. Devos, maybe I can start by asking you, how has the pandemic affected the sectors that you're interested in, the ICT sector? And what do you think maybe some of the challenges and opportunities from this accelerated embrace of digital technologies around the world? Please.
Thank you, Mr. Tang. I'm very honored and very humbled to be here. Thank you for your extensive presentation. There is something I omitted to tell and to share with you, is that I hold a patent. So I don't know personally. So I wanted to mention that. Now, looking back at the pandemic and how it affected the ICT sector, I would like to make a few observations. The first thing is that it has really brought half of the Earth population to a halt for a few weeks, if not a few months. And it has triggered a shift in working habits with unprecedented speed. And in some cases, actually, it has achieved in a mere few weeks results that work regulations in several countries would never have permitted. Likewise, for example, consulting a doctor remotely using your computer or your smartphone video capabilities has now become commonplace in France, thanks to a company called Doctolib. Remote working, which was barely and exceptionally allowed in France, has all of a sudden become the new normality. And while workers are now returning to office, some companies have edicted policies allowing remote work as a new standard. That has resulted in an unprecedented demand for video conferencing, not only as a technology, but also as a way of conducting business tightly integrated with corporate systems. We know that there are lots of ways to video conference, even natively when you consider open standards such as HTML5, but the usual suspects, the usual software giants have kept an edge because of their ability to integrate their systems and their offering with other applications. It is because you can connect agendas, remote working on documents with video conferencing that you can really enable collaboration. Even if newcomers have emerged, which is important enough to be mentioned, because this is part of innovation. Newcomers all the time disrupt the market, or at least try to. And Zoom, for example, has taken the market by storm, even if it did not provide at the time the same integration levels as the others. But from a user experience standpoint, I must confess that we are starting to realize that all these video conferencing and remote working solutions tend to flatten our relationships as they happen on flat screens. Furthermore, the quality of the experience is limited by the weakest link. Would it be your connection, Mr. Tang, or Stina microphone, or Stacy's camera, or my own loudspeakers? And that has an impact and an effect in meetings, because I've been myself delivering several classes and keynotes remotely. And each time I have felt being a megaphone talking to post stamps. Now, when you ask me to look further, the first observation is that smartphones tend to be replaced faster than computers. And therefore, they have become the video conferencing tool of choice, especially because they have now a large display and better cameras, so you can see people better. And as such, it also makes it easier to take notes or check your emails sometimes while you are attending a remote meeting. But also a similar challenge has been put during the pandemic on network infrastructures, facing an ever-growing need for bandwidth and low latency. Cables have been laid on sea bottom all around the place. Satellite constellations are now deployed faster than ever. And countries' investment programs on fiber optic deployments are already paying off. In France, for example, fiber connectivity starts to have a tangible impact on house prices in the countryside. Now, if you want to focus a little more on the startup scene, what we've seen in France is that they have continued to flourish, mainly due to the large amounts of money that have been injected everywhere in the economy. Those huge amounts of money trying desperately to be invested anywhere. We've seen mega funding rounds accelerating in the US and in the UK, as well as in China recently. And in France alone, the number of new unicorns has doubled from 2020 to 2021, as well as the number of funding rounds above 40 million euros. And that is the lasting results of France's Investments for the Future program that was designed 10 years ago as a counter shock to the financial crisis, and that initially dedicated more than 4 billion euros to France's digital economy. And La French Tech was part of this effort. Interestingly, part of this program is a new instrument that was set up called France Brevet, which would translate into France's patents. And that instrument secures small company investments in intellectual property by aggregating patents together in any specific area, allowing to defend on their inventors' behalf those patents and those patents groups against much larger companies' infringements.
It's a very interesting development that we've been following closely. I've been following closely since my time in Singapore. This France brevet, it rose because of trolls, and this is an attempt by the French government to consolidate and to support SMEs. So yeah, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to share that.
No. You're right. I'm glad you appreciate, and I'm sure that Didier Patrick will be happy to hear about this. I would like to take two examples of innovation that will actually echo what Stacy just said about sustainability and care for the planet. In the agri-tech space, we have a company such as Sun Agri that is deploying solar panels above and not in lieu of small crops. So literally speaking, they are adding zero emission energy production on top of agriculture. But there is more. They use their solar panels to protect vineyards and orchards from the consequences of extreme climate episodes, such as heat waves and frost, by just having the panels protect what's under. But they also use artificial intelligence based on a core patent that they have to adapt shading to the plant's maturity, hygrometry in the soil, as well as the plant's growth patterns, which makes that on average, they can save 20% water consumption and still have the plant reach optimal maturity. This is what they call AI for food, and this is what I translate into AI for good. I have another example in the ESG space, because we all know that extra financial reporting is difficult, if not impossible, to audit. SmartBee is a startup in the south of France that has deployed and that runs a blockchain network that allows any project, any company, and any development bank to generate, record, and trade fully auditable proofs of impact in order to ensure measurable reporting and to avoid double counting. And while I must confess that this company does not hold patents yet, they could be actually interesting for WIPO to trace patent ownership and transfers in a fully auditable manner without any disclosure of the patent content nor its trade secrets. So I think these two examples show you that innovation can happen with or without patents.
No, Philippe, I thank you so much for. Incidentally, I don't know whether you've seen the stats, but VC activity, you're talking about how it's grown out, it's expanded a lot in France. VC activity in Africa was 80%, 80 year on year. VC activity in Latin America was about 25% year on year. 12%. And VC activity in Asia Pacific was 25%. Where I come from Southeast Asia, that 25% growth is already on a very high base. So we were quite surprised in the GII when we saw VC activity going up quite a bit. I want to ask you one last question. If you've a lot of national governments calling into this conference, what would your advice to them be if they want to promote startups and SMEs and entrepreneurship? What would you tell them, very quickly, what to do and what not to do?
I would probably, and again, I mean, as I'm very polite and very humbled, this would just be personal advice, but I would, if I had an opportunity to talk to them face to face, I would probably suggest three things. The first one is let innovators innovate. Let's make sure that in any of the programs that you design, there is a wide room left for innovation without asking permission. Because too often governments do their job, and they do their job very well, which is about controlling. And innovation is something that at some point needs to go beyond control or out of control. And that's a risk that is worth taking. My second advice would be to remember that not all startups are deploying social networks. And in the B2B space, they need customers. And so each time a government policy can easen or loosen the way and the incentives for large corporations to take the risk of working with small companies, instead of seeing small companies as a risk, I think it's a great service to give to the ecosystem. And my last advice, if I may have an advice on that, is to be very careful of making sure that exit markets will be wide enough and deep enough to absorb all the amounts of cash that have been poured into startups. Because each time you rejoice because you have a new unicorn in your country, you actually have another problem, which is that you need to make sure that this company will be worth 2 or 3 billion in a few years, because they are financed by VCs. VCs are backed by investors, and everybody wants his money back at some point in time, and actually within the duration of the investment fund. So meaning that if everywhere in the world you don't have enough markets capable of welcoming IPOs, or if you don't have enough sound, large businesses capable of making deep acquisitions and putting on the table hundreds of millions, if not billions of euros or dollars to acquire those companies, then all of a sudden, all your innovation will just disseminate all around the world. And you might not necessarily, as a government, make sure that your national policies are reaping national benefits.
Thank you so much, Mr. DeVos. Thank you so much, Philippe. And thanks once again to all 3 panelists for joining us today. It's a pleasure to hear all your views from different parts of the innovation ecosystem. We look forward to working with all of you in your different capacities. I think now it's time for me to maybe pass the floor back to my colleagues, either Mr. Carsten or ADG Marco, because we have a next panel coming up, which is chaired by Mr. Sumitra Dutta, who is our co-editor of the Global Innovation Index, professor at Cornell University, and founder, I believe, of the Portland Institute. Sumitra, shall I pass the floor straight to you, if I may? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Director General. And good afternoon, good evening to everyone who is listening to us, depending on which time zone you are in. So thank you very much for joining us for this global launch of the Global Innovation Index. We have had some excellent speakers and some excellent points made by earlier panelists and by the distinguished heads of state and the various ministers. And I think one thing that we all have heard repeatedly is that innovation is high on the agenda for leaders from both the public and private sectors. And I think it's important to understand that innovation is important not just because of economic reasons. Yes, innovation does create new products, does create new services. Innovation does lead to creating new wealth, which is very important for the progress of any society. But there's another very important element for which innovation is critical, and that is to give hope, especially to young people, to give a path for them to realize their dreams. If a country is able to make it easy for people to innovate, if a country is able to provide a fertile environment for innovation, you're essentially allowing your people to become the best that they can be, to be able to create and to be able to deliver on the dreams. So innovation is critical for us. Now, the pandemic has certainly been a great stress test for economies and countries, in fact, the whole world at some level. And just like after the financial crisis, the finance system put in a whole set of stress tests to evaluate, what is right, what is wrong, where to improve. I think now is a good time for us to think about stress tests for innovation. Innovation is important in the future. Some aspects of innovation policies have worked well, as has been seen in the remarkable success of us to be able to launch vaccines very rapidly, to be able to change some policies like, for example, telemedicine, which was, as mentioned earlier, not very widely used, but today is very widely used in many countries. So some things have worked extremely well. Yet, as was mentioned earlier, some other aspects have not actually worked equally well. We have seen increased inequities, especially with regard to minorities and women. And this is an important issue for us to handle, because clearly societies will not be able to aim towards a future which is more sustainable and inclusive if we have increased inequities in society around us. And also we have to sort of keep in mind, how do we take everyone along as we build back better? As was mentioned earlier by Director General, as we build back better, how do we take everyone along with us? So a number of interesting questions are there for us to explore. And we have with us today an excellent panel, a group of 4 colleagues who will help us to explore some dimensions together, I think, in this brief panel. Now, I begin with Michael Maybach, who's the CEO of MasterCard. And Michael is also a member of the GII Advisory Board. So thank you, Michael, for your membership of that board. Your support is very important for us. Now, MasterCard, as we all know, is a very important organization that is very, very key for financial services and, of course, is very interested in financial inclusion globally. Now, we also heard in some of the previous speakers that the partnership between the public and private sector, between society and government, is very critical. So I'd love to invite you, Michael, to share your views about how inclusive financial services can be better provided across the world through a good partnerships across public, private sectors, business, society, and government.
I'm happy to be a part of the Global Innovation Index's launch. There's an incredible amount of innovation happening across the world to bring more people into the digital economy. That work includes new ways of getting loans to small businesses, laser-focused insurance plans, and digital payments in more places. Right now, about 1 in 5 people worldwide do not have access to basic financial services. That prevents them from starting new businesses or building up savings or sending money to family. The pandemic sped up the shift to digital money, so there's now a greater danger of the digital divide widening. This is an enormous global problem, but one we can all solve by working together. Bringing more people into the digital economy benefits them and benefits markets, growing prosperity for everyone. I will share a few innovations happening right now in this space. 1. Apollo Agriculture in Kenya. This startup uses satellite images and machine learning to understand the financial health of small farms in Africa. It uses that data to tell farmers how to increase crop yields and help them get much-needed loans. 2nd, Toffee Insurance in India. This company creates highly targeted insurance plans for people, like theft insurance for bicycles, used by delivery workers. These plans make sure more people can afford insurance and they aren't wiped out by a common mishap. And 3rd, Mocafi in the US. The company offers an app providing banking services for lower-income minority communities, delivering financial services right to the people who need it most. That should help them avoid excessive fees for simple things like cashing a check, and ultimately help them build generational wealth. Governments play a huge role here. By encouraging these kind of businesses that are trying new things, they help startups thrive, they help people thrive, and they help economies thrive. Technology, when focused in the right ways, can be an incredible force for good. I'm looking forward to continue the work of MasterCard and the Global Innovation Index in this space.
Thank you very much, Michael. I think you gave some excellent examples of how you can, in fact, really innovate in providing inclusive financial services in emerging markets. Today, luckily, we have with us 3 excellent representatives of emerging markets. And I'd like to begin with our next panel speaker, Gianna Sagazio, who's the Innovation Director for the Brazilian National Confederation of Industry, CNI, CNI also has been a very good supporter, a corporate partner for us for many years. And Gianna in particular has been very strong advocate for the GII inside Brazil. Gianna, I'm very happy to welcome you for this panel. And I would like to begin by asking you about your own experiences in Brazil. You have been very strong in advocating the use of GII inside Brazil, especially you lead the MEI, the Movement of Industrial Enterprises, which is a collection of some of the largest businesses in Brazil. And I would love to hear from you in terms of how do you see innovation policies in Brazil evolving? What has worked well? What are areas where perhaps things can change?
Thank you, Sumitra. It's a great pleasure to be here with you. I would like to salute the authorities and participants on behalf of the Director General of WIPO, Darren Tang, and thank you for our long partnership as a knowledge partner. CNI, the Brazilian National Confederation of Industry, is the main organization representing Brazilian industry. Its challenge is to increase the competitiveness of Brazilian industry by influencing the policy environment. To this end, it engages in policy dialogue with Congress, the federal government, and judiciary. It represents more than 20% of GDP in Brazil. With the engagement of business leaders, the entrepreneurial mobilization for innovation that is coordinated by CNI is joining forces around an unprecedented action with the aim of shaping the innovation agenda in line with the reality of the business world. MEI is a movement intended to stimulate the innovation strategy of Brazilian companies and improve the effectiveness of policies in support of innovation through constructive dialogue between the entrepreneurial sector, the Brazilian government, and academia. CNI and MEI, we have been working hard to stimulate the innovation strategy of Brazilian companies and to improve the effectiveness of the policies in support of innovation through the dialogue between all sectors. The Global Innovation Index is a very important instrument for us to support the proposals for the Brazilian government and also the proposals for the strategy of the companies. So the Global Innovation Index is very important for us in supporting the advancing of the agenda of innovation in Brazil.
Much, Gianna, and if you allow me to follow on with another question. Now, clearly, Brazil is one of the most important economies in Latin America and globally. And how does innovation help Brazilian future? How does innovation, in fact, help the future Brazilian people? And what can be done to make the policies more supportive of that?
Well, innovation is crucial for our future. We recognize that innovation is essential for the industry, for all sectors, also for the education in Brazil. So we give a lot of value for innovation. What can be done in Brazil is to improve our public policies and the investment on R&D. Because of the fiscal crisis here in Brazil, we are limited in the investment on R&D. But we are working hard with the Brazilian government in order to improve the investment, public and private, in R&D. I believe that the investment also is very important to implement the agenda of innovation in Brazil.
We'll probably come back, time allowing, to some other questions about Brazil and what is happening in innovation in Brazil. But let me turn now to our next panel member, Mr. Ismail Gul, who is the chairman of the Turkish Exporters Assembly from Turkey. And earlier we had the pleasure of listening to His Excellency Mr. Mustafa Varnak, who's a Minister of Industry and Technology, Turkey, and now we can perhaps explore some more aspects of Turkey's focus on innovation through the comments of Mr. Ismail Gul. Are you here with us, Mr. Ismail Gul?
Yes, I am listening.
Great,
Professor.
wonderful. It's a pleasure to have you here with us. And thank you very much for your support also, because the Turkish Exporters Assembly has joined us this year for the first time as a member of the corporate partnership of the Global Innovation Index. Now, Turkey has done extremely well this year in the index, and congratulations on Turkey's success. But I would love to hear your views in terms of how you see the Global Innovation Index helping Turkey move forward in the innovation agenda. The minister earlier talked about an evidence-based industrial policy and the GII helping in that. We'd love to get your views on that, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Datta. Dear audience and panelists, I am honored to be speaking on behalf of Turkish Exporters Assembly in this panel with GII corporate partners. As you say, this year, for first time, we are glad to be a corporate partner of GII. I hope this panel will bring new dimensions for partners and our countries. Dear audience, innovation is the driving force to shape the future. With the pandemic, digitalization reshaped innovation policies and business strategies. As team, we navigated on digitalization and organized 91 virtual trade delegation and 12 fairs for the first time in our history. Since 2012, we organized Turkey Innovation Week in order to support export growth based on innovation. More than 700 speakers are hosted and 500,000 people visited the Turkey Innovation Weeks. Last year, we organized Innovation Week virtually for the first time. The event broke a record with 7 million interactions. These figures show how great the interest for innovation in Turkey. The pandemic also increased attention of digitalization. So corporates have started to work more closely. We care about this collaborative culture. Within the scope of GII Turkey Roadmap, we designed a national task force consisting of 40 representatives from 22 institutions. Our task force is supported by our president at the highest level. At the same time, we coordinate all of the activities on Turkey Global Innovation and Monitoring Platform. And thanks to our efforts, we are happy to learn that we jumped 10 places and ranked 41st in the index. This rank is a historical record for Turkey. We are happy. We would like to thank our president and ministries for leading this breakout. We will continue to support innovation ecosystem of Turkey and believe that Turkey will progress more in GII next year. Dear panelists, finishing my words, I would like to thank Portland Institute, panelists and valuable moderator, Mr. Professor Dutta. He was a keynote speaker in Turkey Innovation last year. He enlightened us with his attractive speech full of innovation. We invite all of you to Turkey Innovation Week 2022 and discover the great potential of Turkey. Thank you very much for everything.
Mr. Ismail Gul, for your very kind comments. And in fact, thank you for inviting me last year to take part in your Turkey Innovation Week. I enjoyed my participation very much, and I must say that I was very impressed both by the kind of questions which the audience asked and a lot of the young people who reached back to me. So let me ask you a question, because clearly Turkey is a great country with great human talent. How did the Turkey Innovation Week, you feel, help stimulate this creative drive or the innovation drive among the young people in Turkey? How are the young people reacting, and what is happening on the young people dimension in Turkey?
The young people is willing to, very insisting to innovation. You know, they are very exciting to learn about innovation or create of things. Tomorrow we're opening to Technofest. You know, the Turkish name is Technofest organization. More than 1,000 young join this organization. They are gathering, join there, and then at the same time we incorporate the universities. The young people, you know, the aim of the lifestyle innovation for them.
Thank you so much. And, you know, as I said earlier, I do believe in the power of young people to drive innovation in the country. This point was made earlier by several speakers. And I would like to explore this a little further with the next panel member, Professor Nagla Rizk, who's a professor at the American University of Cairo in Egypt, and also the founding director of the Access to Knowledge for Development Center at the university. Welcome, Dr. Nagla. Are you here with us?
Thank you. Yes,
Great.
I'm here.
Very pleased to see you. And, you know, you are at the heart of an innovation ecosystem inside Egypt. You have, of course, first-hand knowledge of not just what is happening in Egypt, but also in neighboring African countries, which is of great interest. We heard earlier from Director General Tang about how venture capital deals in Africa have increased, how innovation hotspots are emerging in Africa. So I'd love to hear your perspective in terms of what's happening in Egypt and perhaps the neighboring countries.
Thank you very much, Sumitra. I'm very pleased to be joining you today, also as member of the GII Academic Network. The biggest challenge, but also an opportunity for my part of the world, Egypt, is the percentage of youth. We have what we call a youth bulge. More than 50% of the population are young, which we can look at it as a great wealth of human resources. These unique demographics, the challenge sadly comes against a background of unemployment of the youth and the educated. So the challenge and the opportunity becomes how can we capitalize on this wealth to promote entrepreneurship and innovation. The good news is that quite a bit is happening in Africa, as you quite rightly say. We do research on African innovation as members of the Open African Innovation Research Network partnership. We are the North African Hub at the center at the American University in Cairo. And through our evidence-based research, we try to assess and explain and understand the innovation that's happening in Africa. And one of our conclusions, my colleagues and I, is that there's plenty of it happening in Africa. What we try to do is we try to widen the lens to look into that and understand the nuances that is happening on the ground. The statistic on VCs is very interesting. We find plenty of evidence in countries in Egypt, in Kenya, Ghana, South Africa, Ethiopia, Nigeria, and plenty of other research areas where we see alternative forms of knowledge governance, alternative alternative ways of human skill development, marking, for example, rather than trademarking, but trying to mark the products within their own firms and protecting their knowledge. So we try to adopt an inclusive understanding of innovation and try to showcase this kind of innovation to our audience. Now, it is also clearly a clear challenge took place with COVID-19 because what we witness as multi-layered inequalities was exacerbated, but at the same time, technology offered ways to be innovative in offering educational content, in offering health services, in promoting data-driven innovation, for example. So in all of these, it is very important to adopt a grounds-up approach to understanding the data landscape, to understand the realities that are happening on the ground. One positive example I would like to cite is research that we are doing with Egypt's Academy of Research, of Scientific Research and Technology in understanding the data landscape that actually provides information to the Global Innovation Index. And for us to understand the reality on the ground, it is very important that we reflect these realities using rigorous research and collaboration between academia and the government and, of course, the private sector. Another important example I would like to cite is Egypt's AI strategy. I sit on the technical committee, and the committee includes people from the entrepreneurial scene, myself as an academic, and other people from technology. So this kind of multi-stakeholder approach, inclusive approach to science and technology and policies, but also to understanding the realities that are happening on the ground, including different communities, monitoring using novel data collection mechanisms and technologies to understand what's happening on the ground and enable us as a country, as communities, to make the best use of our youth.
Dr. Nagla, and thank you to the American University of Cairo also for joining the Global Innovation Index as a valued member of the academic network. I certainly do believe that youth will play a very important role in the future of Africa. Recently, I just taught a course on digital transformation to a whole group of students in Nigeria, and I was very, very impressed by the quality of discussions and the energy and vitality in the room. And this is something which is a very important future of Africa. I think today, just to close the panel that we have had, we have heard some excellent views in terms of both the potential of partnership, the power of technology, the ability of young people and people, the whole power of emerging markets to lead in innovation, to use innovation to create a better future. And I certainly hope that studies like the Global Innovation Index will help countries all over the world, but especially in emerging markets, to bring a more evidence-based focus to their own innovation policies. And as we design innovation policies for a post-pandemic world, we can have more well-thought-out approaches to putting in place the best policies for all the key stakeholders. Thank you very much for your attention and for your participation in this panel, our dear panel members. Over to you, Shasha.
Thank you very much, Professor Duta. Let me now pass the floor to our Assistant Director General, Marco Aleman, for his closing remarks.
Many thanks, Sasha. Many thanks, Director General. Let me give a very short concluding remark. First of all, let me thank everybody for a very fruitful and rich event as the one we have this afternoon. Very few takes away. The first one, the Global Innovation Index 2021 showed that new ideas have been critical for overcoming the pandemic, and not only in the pharmaceutical and biotechnology sector, but other sector ITC, and are essential for ensuring post-pandemic economic growth, scientific output, expenditures in research and development, intellectual property filings, and venture capital deals continued to grow in 2021, building on a pre-crisis performance. Second, the research and expenditure showed great resilience during the pandemic-linked economic downturn in a way that was less than in previous slumps. However, the impact of the crisis has been highly uneven across industries. And finally, innovation-targeted policies should be at the center of government efforts to support innovation ecosystems, particularly in emerging economies, including efforts to reduce the gap among economies, among sectors, and among groups of the population. With this, I would like to thank all heads of state, ministers, and all speakers for the great discussions. All have been clearly said, have been able to set the tone of the key role that innovation plays nowadays. Thanks also to our global audience for joining us through the WIPO webcast. Almost 2,000 people were able to follow this launching today. I want to thank all WIPO colleagues and the GII team for another successful GI edition, in particular the GII team members that are not in the podium today, like Vanessa Barnes and Jack Gregory. I would like also to thank the Portland Institute, the advisory board of the GII, the corporate network partner, and the newly established academic network for the support they have provided, as well as to the group of consultants like Mr. Baker, Mr. Reynoso, and Mrs. Garas-Nasvili. We at WIPO will continue to support the creation of thriving innovation ecosystems worldwide in conjunction with our member states and with key innovators actors. Thank you to all of you for joining us and for helping us to have this successful event today. Thank you.